Looks like we're live. We're live right now, so fantastic.
You're alive. I'm questionable, but anyway.
I've got two special people. I've got two lovely people here with me today. So I have Jenna Ball. Hi, Jenna. How are you?
Hi, I'm fantastic.
And coming all the way from America, both my guests today. I have Marty Keltz as well. Hello, Marty.
Marty Keltz, but Marty Keltz is actually in Toronto, Canada, and my Canadian brethren would be offended if you said I was from America. I am from America. No, they would be offended if you said I was in America. I am indeed from America, from Brooklyn, New York, which I'm sure your very astute Aussie audience is going to pick up on my Brooklyn accent, but I am living in Toronto these last 14 years.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful. So we have a tri-wizard. We have a triangle of three different countries here at the moment.
We do. I like that.
You're here, and for a few different reasons I would like to talk to you, but for those people who don't know who you are a multi-Emmy Award winner, and I see you've got the giant silverware or goldware just nearby. Have you got that just to show there?
Prove it.
There it is.
The fancy bottle opener.
Yeah, and this ain't plastic either. It's the real thing. Can you hear? Anyway, yes, that's true.
So I was wondering if you could tell us why you've got these Emmys, and that'll probably flow into why we're talking to you in the whole first place.
Okay, well, very simply, I spent about 20 years at Scholastic Incorporated, which has a very large presence in Australia, as a matter of fact.
Sure does.
And we worked very closely with them when we were running Scholastic Productions. And, you know, we were, in effect, the motion picture and television arm of Scholastic Inc. So the mandate we had beginning in 1978 was to take underlying book properties that Scholastic owned and try to convert them into motion picture and television programming, as well as doing video programs for, if anybody remembers what a VHS or a Betamax machine was. So very early on, we were creating content for VHS. As a matter of fact, the Babysitters Club episodes that eventually appeared on the Disney Channel and HBO were originally produced VHS for home video. So, you know, over the 20 years that I was there, we actually won 6 Emmys. This is the one that I won for executive producing My Secret Identity, which I think aired in Australia at one point with Jerry O'Connell. And essentially, Scholastic was a pioneer in trying, and again, these are hard concepts for people who don't live in America to understand, because Australia, New Zealand, so many countries have a proud tradition of children's programming, whereas, you know, when I was there at Scholastic, there was very little children's television on ABC, NBC, or CBS, which were the networks. So most of the children's programming that all of the world has become familiar with, anything from Rugrats and on, were things that came later, when there was a Nickelodeon and when there was Teletoon here in Canada, and you know, the other cartoon networks and children's networks in the States, of course the Disney Channel, which is now all over the world. These things didn't exist. So Scholastic essentially really created the first children's ad hoc network when we started to distribute VHS versions of the, you know, children's video on the clubs, just like we were selling the books. So
what do you think the most popular one in Australia, Marty, that you did?
Well, the most popular show in Australia I didn't do, but that came out of Canada, was the Saddle Club. The Saddle Club was enormously successful, and the fellow who produced that, Steve Levitan from Protocol Films, was the fellow that I worked with that did the Goosebumps episodes up here in Canada. Well, actually, what happened was that Scholastic produced a lot of the programming that it did in America in Canada as Canadian-U.S. co-productions. So you know, that's really how I developed this affiliation with Canada in the very early 1980s, and eventually wound up moving here in 2000. So for me, the area of creating media that goes across platforms is something that is old school. So you know, it was going from books to VHS and beta. Today, it's everything from, you know, Netflix to the things that you know, we're doing now with TouchCast and on YouTube and elsewhere.
It's funny that you say that whole cross-media thing, because I know it's amazing to me. It's mind-boggling that in my own household, with my eldest daughter, loved the Goosebumps books and absolutely adored. And every time I had to go up to the shops, I'd go up to Woolies and get the groceries, and I'd have to buy a little Goosebumps book to bring home. And then, of course, that evolved into the television series of Goosebumps, which you were involved in. And that whole cross media is very interesting. And it's funny that Jenna, as we're talking to you, we talked to Marty there about the video production and the television production, but coming from the books, that's your, as a freelance writer, as an author, as a novelist, that's really your bread and butter. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been a freelance writer for 35 years. Focusing on animals, nature, women's rights. And then I started volunteering at my local SPCA and started noticing how the animals really fell in love with the kids and the kids fell in love with the animals. It was just this love affair happening all the time. And I thought, wow, kids really respond to that. I would really like to write something that would help kids understand how to, you know, become kind, compassionate, caring using animals. So that's what got me started on Critterkin, which means animal family, of course. But the whole cross-platform thing, you know, the first way we published the Critterkin books was as an ebook, you know, which was totally out of my, you know. So it's really interesting to see how people want to consume your content, you know. And the kids are really into seeing me read it aloud as opposed to you know, reading it themselves. So Marty can tell you, he's always urging me to get on video and stuff and talk to the kids. So.
Well, you know, what's interesting, you know, in terms of two things. One, in terms of cross-platform. You know, with the Magic School Bus, we were very early on in that. You know, obviously going from the books to the TV series, but then working with Microsoft, we made CD versions of the Magic School Bus episodes that kids could then interact with and engage with. You know, on the Critterkin side, you know, we did something that we couldn't do with Magic School Bus. In other words, while you know, lots of people fell in love with Ms. Frizzle, I couldn't bring Miss Frizzle onto a GHO to you know, read to the kids in the class. I could barely get Lily Tomlin kicking and screaming into the recording studio to be Miss Frizzle. So, but that's another story for another day. As it turned out, she of course loved being Miss Frizzle and did a wonderful job. But the tremendous bonus that we've gotten with Jenna is not just as the author of these wonderful books, who is inspired, you know, by the animals and the kids interacting with each other at the shelter, but that she was also able to draw and illustrate them, so that she brought that whole dimension to the stories as well. What the bonus was, getting back to Miss Frizzle, was that this main character, Ms. Janaya, was somebody that Jenna could breathe life into and bring to classrooms, you know, which she's now done all over the world. So
when you talk about multimedia, wow.
Yeah. So what happens is that, you know, we have done GHOs just like this, where we're sitting in the classroom with the kids. They're there with the book opened in front of them. Ms. Janaya is on the screen either via Skype or GHO, reading the story, asking them questions, and then to continue the multimedia right along, after Jenna's read the story, she splits the screen between her visually being there and a tablet that she has, and gets into drawing with the kids as well. So that the kids wind up having an opportunity to read about Lance, you know, in a book that we've done, that she's written. They get to meet Ms. Janaya, who's there talking, and then they get to sit down and, along with Ms. Janaya, who's in fact an artist, learn how to draw the dog they've just been reading about.
That's magical.
Just to add the finishing touch, the dogs we draw are actual dogs that are waiting for homes at shelters in the kids' area. So then they get to know that they're helping write stories and get those dogs adopted. So it's very empowering too, which is a big goal of Critikin, is to empower kids to make a difference in the real world.
Now, of course, Critikin evolved to you working on another project, which is the Not Perfect Hat Club project. I'm quite even. Look.
It was actually an accident, Brett.
Oh, well, do you know what? I've got my tiara on.
You put your hat on. So here I was reading these stories to these kids, right? That's my favorite. And every time we start to draw, the kids would say things like, "Oh, mine's terrible. It's so ugly. I'm awful at drawing. I can't do this." And you know, the energy went from being this joyful, playful thing to really negative, like in 2 seconds. And finally, one day, I just said, "Hey, time out, kiddos. You know, what's going on here? Do you know how to roller skate the first time you try? Can you do your multiplication tables right all the time? No. So why do you think you should be able to draw perfectly? Besides, what's perfect, you know?" So I said, "Okay, everybody get out a hat." And they held up their hands. I said, "When we put on these hats, there are not perfect hats. And we don't have to be perfect when we're wearing them, okay?" Okay, so, they got it. And it freed them to have fun and explore their own creativity as opposed to what they thought was perfect. And all the fun came back into the room right away. So that was my first aha moment. Putting on these not perfect hats is a way to free children to explore who they are and let go of that notion of perfection, which is, it's not possible anyways.
I love how I'm always looking to talk and connect with people who are like looking at what's next in education and looking at teaching in the new paradigm, looking at what this new paradigm is, and a lot of that is global connections and using technology. But it's fascinating to me, and that's really why I wanted to connect with you guys. It's fascinating to me that we can talk about this futuristic concept of teaching in the new paradigm and using these sort of things, like your Not Perfect Hat Club, but really it's catching on to this age-old, beautiful, traditional value of valuing oneself, and that the uniqueness of each child is so important and so essential to love and to nurture. So it's fascinating that we're capturing this future to bring alive these things that were so important to humankind for generations.
You know what's weird to me is, where do we ever get the notion of perfectionism anyway? Because A, it's boring. Everybody can't be the same. That's boring, right? And we do a lot better if you do what you do well and I do what I do well and Marty does what he does well. Then we work together to make something that's bigger and better, right? It only makes common sense to me. So I don't understand where this whole perfection thing came from.
Well, part of it is that throughout education, we've been driven to make it a competitive situation, and that's particularly become the case in the United States. So that a set of standards get identified that are the same for all kids, and each of those kids are supposed to meet those standards and then perform equally well on a test that checks to see if each kid is just like the other kid right next to them. And what we all know is that they're not. And
does that remind you of car manufacturing? You put a car on an assembly line, and you get to the end, you quality test it, right?
Right. Which is the test. And I think that what we're finding, which is really what's been so rewarding, and you can see it in some of the blogs that these educators are writing that are embracing, the Not Perfect Hat Club, is that we want to liberate each child to be able to be seen both by themselves and by their teachers and parents as gifted, as special, as unique. I want to lift the stigma of what historically could be called, learning disabilities, and make them, seen as for what they are, which is learning differences. One of the ways that I can effectively make that point is that, right up until the 5th grade of elementary school, I was a non-reader. I was illiterate. It's a long time ago, so they didn't have words like dyslexic. I also was somebody who just didn't sit in their seat or sit still. So I guess I was also ADHD. But from the point of view of the school, I was just in a class with stupid kids, retarded kids, who very little was expected of. And, in the model that we're trying to put together under the Not Perfect Hat Club, it's really to create a tent that every child can live under with every teacher and be uniquely and individually themselves and who they are. And that they individually are on a journey, which should indeed have goals and aspirations and standards that they could aspire towards, but they're going to get there in their own way. They're going to get there in their, through their own skills and talents. We know that some kids do well with one media versus another media. So if the content that we're teaching is multimedia, multimodal, taking advantage of the technology that we've got to be able to do that today, then we're going to give the greatest opportunity to the greatest number of children to experience success in school. And then to the degree that we do that, we get back to what Jen is saying, which is we don't want everybody the same. We see the world, benefiting from being diverse and different. Whether it's cultures, whether it's learning styles, whether it's religions, it doesn't really matter. But that mix is really what's going to get us through the 21st century, surviving it as opposed to not.
That's
I like to think
it's that new paradigm, that 21st century.
It's the new paradigm, yeah.
I love what you said there about liberate each child. And I know we could talk for ages about this sort of stuff. We're all passionate. I think we're all on the same wavelength. But Jenna, what I wanted to ask you was, if people wanted to be involved with the Not Perfect Hat Club, if they wanted to go and find out a little bit more, how can they do that? What's the best way to reach?
Well, so go to our website, which is notperfecthatclub.com, and you'll see my smiling face with my goofy hat, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. And then you can join our subscription thing. We'll communicate with you, but you can also follow us on Twitter. Both Marty and I are very active there. We're also active on Facebook, and we're happy to send you information.
That's great. You're very involved in the new teacher Twitter scheme as well, the NT2T. So if you are a new teacher who's just cutting their teeth on Twitter, that's a good place to meet and connect with you and let things evolve from there. Look, and I'm looking forward to having you as part of the Aussie Ed team for our upcoming class.
Yeah. Can hardly wait.
And hopefully a few more educators from my side of the world can meet and connect with you as well. So I really want to say thank you very much for taking some time out of your very cold winter and my very hot summer to talk and connect. And is there any last words you want to leave us with before we sort of stop and finish up here today?
I think the only thing that I want to put a pin in, in terms of encouraging people to go to the Not Perfect Hat Club, is that, what we're trying to do to break out of the system of what it is that the school districts themselves will buy, pay for, is having set the Not Perfect Hat Club up to evolve through a crowdfunding campaign that we're running, along with the whole effort that's on the notperfectclub.com. You'll be able to link to the PubSlush page where we have the crowdfunding opportunity. And I think what teachers are going to discover there is that what we've done is to model rewards against things that the teacher and the students and the school, you know, have already shown us with the visits that Jenna has made to classes they really want, which is, you know, the critic in books and Jenna there in their classrooms to read to them and to teach them to draw. So I'm hoping that folks will go there, and whether it's Australian dollars or New Zealand dollars or English pounds or Canadian dollars, people will help support that effort.
That's beautiful, and that's another way. We're talking about doing things in a new paradigm and doing things in multimedia and multimodal. There's a new way of certainly achieving the end. So thank you very much, Marty, for stopping by and talking to us, and Jenna likewise. Thank you very much for being part of our little chat here today, and hopefully we get a few people listen to us on my video blog and come along to the Aussie Ed chat in a few weeks.
Perfect. Looking forward to it.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.